Hey guys, how are we doing? Crypto Insight UK here, bringing you back another YouTube video. So to start with today, we're going to quickly cover liquidity pools, and then we're going to talk about something that I think is more pressing and more important, and that's alt season. So we covered these posts on X today, or I posted about Bitcoin, ETH, Doge, and XRP, showing their liquidity pools on the hourly. As you can see, Bitcoin's down to around 106-ish thousand. That we've got dense liquidity below. Now, I do think it's more likely than not this gets taken, especially as we came down to like 107,000. It's just one more little wick below. It is a little bit of a percentage drop from here. It is about 4%. It doesn't mean we have to take this liquidity. That like it does get taken 80% of the time, but there's obviously still 20% of the time that we don't take it. So bear that in mind. I do think the next major move of the market is to the upside. I'm going to get into a few reasons why that is in a second. So that's Bitcoin. And then ETH, obviously being the second largest crypto. We'll look at ETH on the hourly. It's pretty similar in regards to the downside liquidity is more dense than the upside currently. But for ETH, there's two major pockets of liquidity here. One's about 5% down, the other one's about 9% down to clear it all. But that's not really a large move, seeing as what we've just done for ETH is rally from much lower up to all-time highs, from even just in the last few weeks, $2,000 up to $4,000. On a large market cap token like this, it's not really too much of a correction to just be seeing us sweep these areas. And we do have liquidity building above us as well. We talked about XRP. I think XRP looks different. I'm going to get into XRP in this video. I'm going to show you a few different things. I'm going to show you actually XRP against ETH in this video. XRP has already swept this red downside liquidity. It has some more liquidity below us in terms of like a yellow, which is like a medium amount of liquidity. Could be as far as 7% down from where we are now, and 5 to 6% to sweep the lows. However, above us is where the main liquidity resides for XRP, about a 21%, just to bring us back to 340. I think that's likely that this gets taken. When it gets taken again, I'm not in that point of discussion right now because I'm not a great predictor of something like that. The other token that I've been have my eye on, as I'm in a trade still on Doge, is Doge. Let me show you the liquidity on Doge. Similar to Bitcoin and ETH, Doge has a pocket of liquidity below us. The main pocket sits here at about, let's show you, it's about a 7% drop, which obviously aligns with Bitcoin, ETH, and potentially XRP if it comes down to the orange area. And it's at about 20 cents for Doge. And again, I'm going to show you now quickly the daily, and then I'm going to get into a more broad and deep discussion of something that I think is more important realistically. So Doge also on the daily has, if you take, actually this is the wrong multiples, if we get the 3x on there as well, the main liquidity for Doge sits above us at 30-ish cent. Yes, there is some liquidity below, but the main liquidity sits above us at around 30 to 30.5 cent. My argument always is when we get up to these levels, we probably see continuation higher for the structural reasons that I've been discussing. I'm going to show you. So I've shown you the hourly, and on the hourly, Doge, ETH, and Bitcoin have the most dense liquidity below. Only XRP has the most dense liquidity above, okay? So now I'm showing you on the zoomed out time frame, which is something that gives a differing opinion. So Bitcoin on the daily has main liquidity above us. Can't be argued anything else. Doge, I've already shown you on the daily, has the main liquidity above us. ETH on the daily, let's see, hasn't really got much liquidity either way, but I would argue there's more liquidity above us at the minute. ETH's kind of neutral, but ETH has made the most aggressive rise recently. And then XRP is the last one we've been covering. And XRP, I can show you, has most liquidity above us by quite a long stretch, and actually has been adding to this liquidity at around 360, 370 in the last day or so. So larger time frame, as I keep saying, I think we're going to go up based on these liquidity pools and structure realistically, and where we are in the macro environment, which I cover in the weekly newsletter, which is free. Link in the description below. So I hope you can see my discussion here. Now that aside, let's discuss altcoins and alt season. Let's discuss Bitcoin dominance to start with. Where are we? Bitcoin dominance. Bitcoin dominance, I've been saying, is dropping and then making continuation patterns. So this was an ascending parallel channel, which is continuation pattern and downtrend. We then had a broadening wedge, which is again a continuation pattern, and now we've got a ascending triangle, which is also a continuation pattern. So I think Bitcoin dominance continues to the downside. It doesn't get any more complicated or simple than that. That's just my opinion. Based on, this is the monthly time frame. We obviously at some point could stop out, but I think we are due a big pull down in Bitcoin dominance, and it doesn't have to look structurally exactly the same as it has previously. But at some point, I do think we probably do get a large month or two, and I would actually consider these 2 months quite large, relatively, because we haven't seen anything like this during this push up. So we've seen over the space of 2 months, like a 4% move down there, and maybe this month was the biggest one since then. And we'll go from the wicks to the wicks. That's 12%. But if we go from where we are now in terms of this pullback, if you just consider it a pullback, that's 12. It's about 12, 13%. So you could say wick to wick that this move is about the same size as this move here. I would say we look different because we went to the overbought area on the RSI and have crossed bearish. In this period here, we did just get that bearish cross, but we'll quickly return back to the bull side again. And we also hadn't quite reached the overbought area. I would suggest that momentum-wise, those two things indicate that this is more bearish than this period here. So we should probably see some continuation in that bearish momentum. Now, talking about altcoins specifically, I don't think we've seen anything like what alt season can produce, and the tokens that I'm going to show you for this, I'm going to take us to the weekly time frame first. I'm going to start with Doge. I'm going to take my drawings off because it's all a bit messy. But if we look at Doge, this is non-log, I get us on logarithmic, so just so I can show you the scale of this. What we've seen so far for Doge is what I would say is just consolidation or compression is something that I've been talking about as well. It's like we're coiling up, and then I think the move comes. When we look at the last cycle, we still did have spikes and pull downs even during the bear, push up, pull down, like washing people out of positions. But then when we got to this expansionary phase in the market, boom, we really started to rip to the upside. And if we just overlay Bitcoin dominance here, we can see that this went basically as Bitcoin dominance was topping. This is when Doge started to really go. Whether you say that Doge is obviously something that took a share of the Bitcoin dominance top in the last cycle. And then look, we haven't yet seen anything here for Doge in terms of Bitcoin dominance. This was when XRP and Doge rallied towards the end of last year. Since then, we've basically just been consolidating. Doge didn't break any highs. It basically just hit range highs and then continued. And then we'll look at XRP as another example. Now, XRP is this one. It's not got enough price history. Let's look at my other chart. XRP here. Cool. What we can see, and I know a lot of people show you this, but it's when in 2017, this is the time when Bitcoin dominance really took a shit, and XRP basically ripped into the first bit. Then Bitcoin dominance kind of chopped about a bit and then took a secondary shit, and then XRP really ripped. This is 2021. Bitcoin dominance dropped. XRP did rally. This is when we were under the SEC lawsuit. And so far, this little drop here in Bitcoin dominance led to this push up here in XRP price action. And yes, we had a bit of a push up here for XRP, and that was as Bitcoin dominance has fallen in the last 2 months. Now, ETH has taken the majority of this move in terms of Bitcoin dominance. If you ask me, I think the majority of liquidity has rotated into ETH. ETH rallied essentially from 1,500 to 4,000 during this pullback here. So I think that most of the capital basically from Bitcoin just essentially rotated into ETH during this period. And it's one of the main arguments you could have for Bitcoin losing this dominance is that ETH gains so much strength. Now, I do think that this rotates and continues to rotate, and I've shown you the structure of Doge and XRP in previous cycles. The move happens pretty quickly, and this is where I think that it's important to talk about patience in the market. We all want the market to go up, but it's not about what you want. It's just about what actually is true. And what is true is that if we look at XRP, if you can take almost any altcoin and do this with, if you look at XRP, the majority of the move happened in a short period of time after a long period of consolidation. And the majority of the move happens here. You could say it was stunted because that's when the SEC lawsuit came in, but everything else pretty much ripped at this time as well. XRP did catch up on that last flush of dominance. Long period of consolidation, and then a pop. And then I think this is, as I've discussed, I think this is actually a wave two. Yeah, nice, it's on this one. A wave two of a complex ABC where we've got an expanded flat, essentially an ABC where the B leg actually does take out the highs. And then I think we might have no confirmation yet. We'd have to see a break really of 350. I'd like to see an impulse. I'd like some, when I say impulse, I'm talking like structure like this, like big green candles to say, or to clearly, because you can clearly see that this structure of these candles is very different to even this structure here. Yes, this was when the lawsuit settled with, or Judge Torres came out and said XRP was not a security. But this structure and continuation, supported by volume for multiple weeks, is where you can really see, okay, look, you can argue that this structure is different. You can argue this structure here is different from this consolidation. You can argue this structure here is different. And let's take it, I'm just going to take a random alt. I don't know what to take because I don't want anyone to think like I'm talking about that alt specifically. What should I talk about? Cardano is a good example. I don't hold any Cardano. There's not a lot of price action here actually. Oh yeah, maybe there is. But what you can see is Cardano is actually quite choppy, to be fair. But we just consolidated it within a range here, and when we broke that range, look for Cardano, quite impulsive price action supported by volume, and then structurally we just basically came down, consolidated. And I would suggest that we're still ranging, because even within this range previously for Cardano, we obviously set highs, we then swept the lows, we then swept the highs, we then came back, and then we went here. Let's have a look what's happened. We've made lows, we then pushed up, we then swept the lows here, we then swept the highs, we came back to the lows, we swept the highs again, we've come back into the middle of the range, and at some point I presume, as long as history repeats, Cardano will pop out. And the same with any token that has price history. The impulsive moves, they look very different. This is AVAX, boom, and then consolidation, boom, for about 3 or 4 weeks, and then consolidation, then boom for the highs, and then pullbacks, and then this is just this is chop, in my opinion. We hit highs, lows, pushed, pulled the lows again, pulled the highs, came in, lower high, pulled the lows. Like it's just washing. We're washing people out of positions here before what I would call like an expansionary move that we haven't yet seen. Another one, like it doesn't have loads of price history, but Mantle, this is quite a nice example of like a ranging chart. As you can see, we had a local high and then low, and then we just literally go high, low, high, low. And I presume that anyone's been in this trade is struggling. But unless you're a trader and you just trade the range, I mean, that's nice. But we haven't hit, what my point here is we haven't hit this like price discovery phase yet. Flare's a great example of this. Is like a real compressed chart, in my opinion. Hit the highs, hit the lows, made a lower high, made a lower low, swept the lows, and then now we made a lower high. Are we going to make another lower low, or are we going to keep this compression? Because as we can see, the compression is getting tighter, basically meaning that the range in which we're trading is getting smaller and smaller here. Let's see if we can get this push to the upside for Flare, and if we do, we start to break above this range. You can expect that this is like, you can expect this as being like energy sort of thing. When we get this break above this range, I'll show you like it's compressing, it's coiling up, it's coiling up, it's coiling up, it's coiling up, and then at some point, boom, that is what I think is going to happen. I think that's going to happen for Flare. I think it's going to happen for Doge. I think it's going to, I'm going to show you Doge now. My Doge on TradingView is quite drawn upon because I've been watching it in the short term, but like this is the wider trend. I think we are just coiling, and then if we go, so I've shown you that, and then I'm going to show you it in this perspective as well, coiling up, coiling up, coiling up, and then coiling up even more, like even in this sort of pennant sort of pattern here. We're coiling, zoom in again, coiling up even like to the tightest area, and you can see that right here on the RSI as well, as the RSI doesn't really do too much over the last few weeks. coiling up, and at some point you're going to get a move, and the move could be down and down, it could be, or for what I think is going to happen, it's going to be a rip, and it's going to be a rip to the upside. And I think, as I've shown you on Bitcoin dominance, I think at some point on Bitcoin dominance, we're going to get follow through candles. I'm going to show you the monthly time frame. I'm going to go back to these charts as well on the monthly potentially. At some point on Bitcoin dominance, look, we're going to get a candle like this. And whether that's now, whether we retrace a little bit or not, I don't know. But at some point, you're going to see one or two candles that go absolutely boom to the downside. And that's when you're going to see, as long as history repeats, which I think it will, altcoins really go off. And they're all probably going to go off at the same time or similar times, like not probably exactly the same. Some will outperform. And historically, what happens is you get a few different subsections that go off together. You might get DeFi that goes first. You might get memes that go. You might get whatever the trend might be, Dino coins are what seems to be the trend this cycle, but they seem to pop off in like categories, and then you rotate, and then one day one will be going, the next day the next will be going, and or weeks. But more or less everything sort of goes at the same time. I don't think everything is going to go to set all-time highs. I think there's been a lot of distribution over the last 3 years. You have to look at your circulating supply of your token as one thing to take into consideration. Other than that, whether you provide utility to the market, I think that that's going to be quite a decent thing this cycle, especially around stable coins, because it's a narrative people can get behind as much as there will be liquidity around that as well. So I think those two things take massive market share. So first off is narrative and speculation. If you can capture those, your token will probably pump. And the second is liquidity. Liquidity is something that we haven't yet seen affect price action. Sorry, not liquidity. Utility. Utility is something we haven't yet seen affect price action. It's something I've always speculated would affect price action, but we haven't got to a stage of maturity of the market where we see a correlation between utility and market structure. Because people point to ETH for having utility, and I would argue that it does, but I would also argue that it isn't compatible to most of the world's needs, and it also isn't efficient. So does it have utility in that sense? You could argue yes, it has the potential of utility, so I would call that speculation, but I would also argue no, because paying the gas fees for a transaction, especially when the network is congested, is not a feasible solution. I would argue XRP does have utility. Whether it has the same vast utility as what Ethereum does in terms of programmability, I would argue not. But I would argue XRP executes exactly what it says on the tin. Fast and efficient transactions, and if you want to use it for things like cross-border, I think it's perfect. So I think XRP probably does have a lot of utility because it does what it says. So, but that's my opinion. And again, we have to also capture speculation and attention to be able to gain market share, because there's no point having a product if you can't market it and people don't look at it. So that's important as well. Doge isn't something that, in my opinion, has any utility, yet it's stuck around for 3 cycles now, and I think memes have taken decent market share this cycle. I think that there's a trolley aspect to Doge in the respect of, if we actually compare it to Bitcoin, we look over a long period, you can see that Doge has actually performed pretty bloody well. Let's have a look. What happens with Doge is we have these impulsive moves that we've shown you on the on Bitcoin dominance, but even look, we range, then we have a clear impulsive candles to the upside, and then we create a new range on top of the previous high. So Doge has actually held versus Bitcoin, and I think we're in this sort of area for Doge. Something I talk about a lot. I think it's just on a technical basis. Again, I think it's nothing to do with utility here for Doge, but I do think it can capture attention, and I do think you can speculate on Doge as well. And if you use this argument that it's held versus Bitcoin, it makes speculative ranges, and then when it breaks out of the range, it hits a nice perfect 4.236 extension from a technical perspective. This thing looks ready to rip and roar. Whether it's right now, roar is quite a decent pun, I guess, but Doge looks like it have more of a whelp than a roar, being the dog that it is. But hopefully you can see what I'm discussing here. Chainlink, for example, let's look at Chainlink. Cool on the monthly, it is actually quite accumulative to the upside. But the clear impulsive moves do happen again with 2 or 3 months, boom, and then a few months here, and then a consolidation, then a month or two to the upside. Since then, we've chopped, taken the lows, and are making higher highs potentially to expand here. Chainlink, in my opinion, does have utility as an oracle. Whether it's perfect or not, I've been told that it's actually, the infrastructure is not actually that strong and there are better alternatives. I'm not going to say who's discussed that with me, but someone smarter than me. So not better alternatives, but there could be better alternatives. It's got the good narrative around the US government, for example. Is it capturing attention at the minute? Yes. Does it need to do the same thing as all altcoins do and break out of this range before we can see this explosive next period? Yes, but I think it's probably in a range, something like this or something like this. And when it gets to break, boom. When it gets to break, boom. And that's pretty apparent from Bitcoin dominance that I've shown you, but it's also apparent if you just look at the total two of crypto. The whole crypto market is basically waiting to see if we can get this close into price discovery here. We did get the highest ever monthly close for total 2, and we're waiting to see if we can get that next parabolic push to really start sending altcoins here. And total 3 hasn't managed to get the close above this ascending triangle, but at some point, probably sooner rather than later, I think it will. And sooner is within the next few months. Obviously, this could last a little bit longer, but you should complete triangular continuation patterns about 75% of the way through, and I would suggest that is roughly where we are without having to look at it too in depth. But that's essentially where I think we are. I think alt season is around the corner. I thought it was around the corner for a while, and you can kind of see why. Like, this has been just compressing again at the highs. If we look at total 2, it's been pretty similar. It's been compressing at the highs. I actually thought this could be a good time to start alt season after breaking a clear accumulation pattern. Then we came back, we touched the highs. I thought we could go there. This was back in December of last year when XRP was pumping. We didn't, it faked us out. XRP obviously still holds strong. The rest of altcoins gave up quite a lot of market cap. XRP did give some back up, but we're back at highs again, and this chart suggests the same thing. And now we're in that period again. Is it time to go? And I think it is. I think it's as much time to go as I thought it was back in December. And that's as much as I can give you guys. I can't give you any more than what I see, and I hope you can understand my perspective. And with that, I'm going to leave this video. As I've been saying, I think if you haven't got your bags packed, I think it's a good time to add, because if we do get that impulsive move that I've just shown you has been apparent across pretty much every single token throughout history, then you don't want to be left on the sideline. We might not. It's not a bad place to deleverage if that's what some people are doing, but I don't think that this is anywhere near the end. I think that the next expansion is going to be quite large, because I think it's going to be an expression or a release of the consolidation that we've had for altcoins since back here, which is 1,400 days of consolidation before an expansion. So I do think it's going to be quite aggressive to the upside. I think you can have narratives around stable coins flooding into the market, and there'll be loads of other things that probably start to come out. So with all that being said, I'm going to leave that there. I just hope you understand my perspective here. I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. If you did, please do hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Really appreciate it if you do that. Let me know if you've got any questions in the comments section, and share it with a friend. If you want to trade on any leverage, I have a link to WEX and MEXC in the description below. They're both non-KYC exchanges. You can just add them to your portfolio of exchanges that you use. I use quite a few different exchanges myself. Obviously, nothing I say is financial advice, but peace up, A-Town down, as Crypto Insight UK would say.